I have the biggest smile on my face. I am so excited that you're here because I don't know if you're ready for this episode. It is so powerful and transformational. And it's really special for me because this is a guest that we have on who has been really instrumental in my growth in the past year. So for a little bit of context, back in December, I joined a really high-level coaching program in terms of helping me grow, not just personally, but also as a coach and as a business owner so that I can serve you so much better and so that I can serve my clients inside of Food Freedom Academy at an even higher level. And I went into this coaching program. I mean, it wasn't my first one. I've always practiced what I preach, and I've invested in coaches for years now, and they've always been extremely valuable and resulted in massive growth. And so I invested in this program and not knowing exactly how much it was going to change my life and how much I was still going to grow and evolve. And so in the past year, I've been doing so much work on myself, uncovering subconscious blocks, emotional blocks that I didn't even know that I had. I'm someone who's very ambitious. I have big goals. I'm extremely driven. And when it comes to my business, I always want to grow and have a bigger impact so that I can help more women to heal from disordered eating. So what I really noticed this year as I was going after these bigger goals is that there was sometimes some inner resistance, maybe sometimes even some fear. And I was never fully present to it and aware of what was going on. And you may have experienced this before too, where you have these big goals, you know that you want to change. And if you're listening to this podcast, it's probably in relation to your relationship with food, with your body, with yourself. You know that you want to have food freedom and have a healthy relationship with food and not have this constant state of anxiety and guilt and shame and scarcity around eating. And you want to feel accepting of your body and all of these lovely things that, of course, we want in order to live a healthy and happy life. And what you may have been experiencing if you've been listening to this podcast and going on this journey on your own is that you consciously know what you quote unquote should be doing, or you understand these concepts and you truly have this desire to change, but there's this inner resistance. You feel blocks and obstacles, and most importantly, this fear. And maybe you don't know where this fear comes from because you logically understand, like, I know that my life would be better if I didn't struggle with food in this way. So why am I so afraid of changing? And if you can relate to any of this, then this conversation is going to be so powerful for you. Welcome to the Live Unrestricted podcast, a show where you'll learn how to heal your relationship with food and your body so that you can focus your time and energy on more important things like your personal growth. I'm your host, Sabrina Magna, food freedom coach, and my mission is to help make your life happier and healthier without stress, overwhelm, or guilt about food. If you love the show, please do go out and share it. And if you're looking for support with your relationship with food, details about my programs are in the show notes. Thanks for spending time with me today. Now let's jump in. So we are joined by one of my coaches, Sofia, and she is a impact-driven hypnotherapist, speaker, subconscious reprogramming expert, and mindset and nervous system regulation coach. And today we are talking all about your subconscious mind and how to reprogram your subconscious mind so that you can stop the self-sabotage and getting in your own way. And you can finally shift away from the fear and the resistance and make change so much easier, happen faster, and a lot more enjoyable too. So this was originally planned to be one episode, but we just had so much to talk about, and I just saw how much value there was in this conversation that we actually ended up going and having two-parter. So this is going to be part one of our conversation where you're going to get a masterclass on what your subconscious mind mind is and how your mindset and what's going on underneath the surface, how it affects your behaviors and your ability to change on a daily basis. You're going to understand why you feel fear and resistance and where this fear comes from. And then in the second part, we're going to go into why coming from a place of pressure and self-loathing actually gets you further away from your goals. And we're going to talk about like actionable things that you can start doing in your life right away in order to start shifting your subconscious mind and creating more empowering beliefs, emotions, and behaviors in your life so that you can really create the life and the relationship with food and with yourself of your dreams. So without further ado, make sure that you are not multitasking, that you can really like give your full attention to this. I'm a big notes taker. So if you want to like take out a pen and a piece of paper or like even a notes app on your phone to take some notes of like the most valuable things, I really recommend that you do. So let's go into that conversation about your subconscious mind and how to reprogram it with my friend and my coach, Diana. So this is a really special and fun episode for me, and I feel really lucky because all of my guests are always very special. But I was reflecting before we got on this call where I was 10 months ago before we started working together and I joined the group coaching program, and all of the subconscious blocks that I had last year that I didn't know that I had, that I've cleared and shifted in 2024. And it's so funny because you can know all of this stuff. And you probably feel that way too as a subconscious reprogramming expert, but it can be so helpful to have an outside perspective to help you see things that you didn't even see before. So I am so excited that you are here and that I have one of my favorite coaches on the podcast. Diana, thank you for being here.
Oh my God, that's so sweet that you're saying that. That makes me the happiest, seriously, because this work has literally shifted my life. And I have so much joy when I can see people just breaking through whatever is holding them back or whatever is just making them not happy and not enjoy their life or their journey. And obviously, like entrepreneurship is a whole journey, but like this stuff that subconscious reprogramming, nervous system regulation, as we were talking right before we started, can be applicable to everyone. So I'm just so excited and honored to just be here and have the opportunity to spread the word about this, because I definitely 100% think that not as many people still know about these tools and how much easier it is to shift even things that we have been dealing with for years in a matter of weeks or just a few months. So I'm literally, I just want to tell everyone and the whole world about it. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I am someone who I had a lot of success in my life and I really felt like I was moving forward and I was achieving all these things. But when I look back at even where I was a year ago, so much of it was coming from this place of pressure and attachment and trying to achieve in order to feel a certain way about myself. And one of the biggest things is Luke, my boyfriend, he sees the shift that I've made and how much more relaxed and kind and slowing down I am with myself. So it's just, you could be doing the same things, but doing it from such a different place. And then the results are
Literally.
it's exponential.
Literally. And I'm getting chills nonstop as you say that, because that's it. We have talked so many times, like overachiever here as well. And trying to do too many things at the same time and pushing and pressure and stress and all the stuff. And I had to learn the hard way with so many episodes of burnout that we can achieve our biggest dreams from a totally different place. And it's way more enjoyable. And also the best part is that it creates longevity in where we want to do it, because we're not forcing ourselves to do it. We are actually enjoying the process, right? And I feel that's the biggest blessing, I would say, that I have gotten from subconscious reprogramming. Instead of forcing myself to do business or anything related to healthy living and eating in a certain way, exercising, everything, I have applied it to everything. So I stopped myself to do so many things. And granted, I still feel like discipline and willpower are amazing tools and I still use them in certain situations, but I feel like I stopped white knuckling my whole life. And just like you were saying, it feels so much better and people around you will notice it because you're just happier. And I feel like when we're happier, also our body's happier and looking around us is better. So
yes,
yeah,
100%. Even when you talk about your body, I have scoliosis. And so I live in chronic pain. And for the longest time, I associated my back pain with my scoliosis. And in the past year, because I'm not stressed 24/7 and putting all this pressure on myself, the pain has gotten so much better. So there's
that's
definitely
incredible.
a huge correlation with how you feel in your body. And I want to jump right into it. So
Yes.
let's talk about, because we're going to talk about pressure and what it feels to be approaching your goals from a place of pressure. We have a lot of people here on this podcast who, if you're listening, we're going to talk to those of you who are at this place in your journey where you know that you want to heal your relationship with food. You know that you want to feel better about your body and also just feel better about yourself, right? There's so many women who listen to this podcast who are just so terribly mean to themselves and low confidence and low self-esteem. And that affects every area of your life. And what typically tends to happen when you're at that point is you get caught up in the trap of, okay, just tell me what to do. Just tell me what actions to take. Tell me what steps. And what we often hear, and I'm sure that you've seen this too, is I'm listening to your podcast. I'm reading the books. I'm on social media and I understand all of this stuff. But then there's a hard application of it. There's a hard time putting it into practice. So can you explain why it is so important to address your mindset, or more specifically, your subconscious mind?
Yes. And actually, the subconscious mind is the reason why people have this experience. So basically, just to put it super simply, we all as humans have two minds, and the conscious mind is the one that is having the understanding. So I know what would be good for me, is making the plans, is setting the goals, is having the dreams, and it knows how to make us thrive in every area of our lives. For the most part, obviously, sometimes we have even at a conscious level some broken beliefs, let's just say, or thoughts that don't help us. But for the most part, it's a part that initially is going to know, oh, this is the direction I want to go because that's how I'm going to thrive in every area of my life, right? And that is relationship with food, relationship with yourself, your body image, business, career, whatever that is, really your relationships, right? And then the other part of our mind is the subconscious mind. And just so you get an understanding of how powerful and how important is to dive into the subconscious mind, the conscious mind only represents 10% of our minds. And it's absolutely amazing and necessary. Thank God we have it, right? Because it's giving us that direction and that awareness as well, right? Of our behavior, awareness of our thoughts, awareness of all these different things. The subconscious mind is our 90% of the mind. And here's the thing. The subconscious mind automates all our bodily functions, but also it automates all our behaviors. So not all, but literally 95% of everything that you do or not do daily, or of everything that you think and feel daily, comes and is automated by the subconscious mind. So I understand in my bones what it's like and how frustrating it can be to know better and not be able to do better. And granted, a million times we can actually do it, right? The moment we know better, something happens, we make a shift, like a flip of a switch, and then we're behaving differently. We all have those examples. But then there's other things or behaviors or whatever that are so much harder to shift. And I think the first thing I want to tell people is that you probably have the same experience. A lot of my clients come to me saying, I don't understand what's wrong with me. I know better and I cannot get myself to do X, Y, Z. And the first thing that I tell people is there's nothing wrong with you. You're just human. As a human, you have those two minds, and your subconscious mind has literally just automated all these behaviors. And now you want to automate a different type of behavior, and it's causing resistance, because this is our thing that happens. The moment the subconscious mind automates whatever behavior, even if that behavior is not good for your health. Let's just imagine even smoking, right? Because it's automated and you have not died, the primitive brain, which is inside of, or inside, you could say inside, but anyways, it's part of the subconscious mind, will take smoking as, smoking equal you're still alive. So let's just not touch that. We don't touch it. So then any efforts that you want to put into shifting that behavior will be met with a bunch of cravings, a bunch of urges to smoke, a bunch of thoughts, and all these different things, obsessive thoughts about doing the behavior again. And why? Because literally the mind automated that, and it literally is thinking that if you stop doing that, even if it's detrimental for your health, you will die, right? right? So that's what's happening. So like when we get all that resistance to changing, and this is the same thing. So if you have been sedentary, mind automated sedentary, like it just automated it. So since you have not been moving as much or not walking as much or whatever it is, and you're still alive, then it must be fine. So then the moment you want to do something different, the mind will throw up it. And that will come in the way of, I don't know, feeling lazy about it, hating it, like dread, whatever, right? It just comes in a lot of different ways that are like thoughts, urges, emotions, feelings in the body, so that we stay within those parameters that the mind has automated. And also the other reason why the mind automates things is because imagine if you had to think every single decision that you make during the day, it would be so draining, exhausting, literally exhausting. So the mind automates as many things as you repeat. So you were saying about like people are so focused on doing. I think doing is amazing. I think we actually need to be able, I always tell, okay, so I can reprogram your subconscious mind. But if you literally go out there and not make any type of effort with your conscious mind to actually behave differently and actually cement the shifts and the shifts that we have done in session or in a group session, then your mind will revert because you're not almost like anchoring that shift with actions. So I think actions are amazing, but I think they're way more powerful and easier for the mind to automate when we can find whatever is holding us back from the goal that we have. In this case, it can be like from having a better relationship with food, having a better relationship with working out as well, having a better relationship with ourselves, our bodies, right? So whatever is that you want to achieve in any area of your life, in this case, in terms of like health, relationship with food and relationship with your body, identity and everything, your subconscious mind may have created literally a sense of loss. If I am not this way and continue to be this way, then something bad will happen. So then the nice thing about subconscious reprogramming is that you can literally dive into the limiting beliefs or emotions that are coming up as you're trying to shift behaviors and legitimately clear them out of the way. Just like pinpoint what is the belief that is making me not enjoy this or just be fine with this. And then you clear that belief and then the mind shifts. You no longer need to behave that way, feel that way about yourself, feel that way about food or whatever it is that you're working on. So I love like seeing subconscious reprogramming in that way. We have a goal, whatever that goal is. We figure out first what is your mind, why your mind has automated that, what is believing, when did that started? Maybe it started like at a moment where you made a decision or like started doing it one time, a second time, whatever it is, and then the mind automated it. It can be as easy as that as well. We clear that stuff and then we just get you behaving and also embodying like a new version of yourself. And I love also using visualization. It's something that is available to anyone right now. Like anyone out there can literally, if you were to start imagining like that version of yourself, literally close your eyes and for 5 minutes every day, even 3 minutes works, and imagining as that version of yourself that you want to be and imagine yourself enjoying that will already start rewiring the brain to be able to do that. And obviously if you pair that with like actual actions in the real world, then even better. Like the shift becomes way easier, like way easier.
Okay, I want to anchor all of this information in a way that all of you listeners can reflect back on your life and think of like, how could this have happened for me? So let's say at a certain point in your life, you decided, okay, I'm going to try to lose weight. Maybe it was your parents told you that you weren't good enough. There was something wrong with your body. Maybe you saw your parents or your mom doing weight when she was dieting all the time. So you internalized the belief that she doesn't like her body. And if there's something wrong with her body, then there must be something wrong with my body. So it could have happened that early on. If you were like me, I was in my teenage years. It could have happened after you had kids and everyone was talking about bouncing back and getting your pre-baby body back. There's all of these stages in your life where you may have just decided there's something wrong with my body. And if I lose the weight, then I'm going to feel loved and accepted and worthy and part of the society. And along with this intentional desire for weight loss usually goes hand in hand with dieting and restriction. So this is where you started labeling food as good and bad. You started seeing exercise as a way to burn calories instead of just taking care of your body. You started being really anxious around eating just one thing that you deemed as quote unquote bad, and everything started being, oh my God, if I eat this, then I lose weight. And all of these things then triggered these automated affirmations in your mind in terms of the way that you think about food, and then inevitably the way that you act around food, because we know that restriction leads to overeating. We know that it leads to emotional eating. And so all of these thoughts, emotions, and actions became automated because you did them so often. And it can even become part of your identity. I am a dieter. I am an emotional eater. I am someone who's always going to struggle with food and with my body. And when you bring that to awareness, consciousness, anyone could agree, I don't want to be that person. Anyone could logically, consciously know, I don't want this to be part of my identity. But then you said something which has been so impactful for me this year, which is when you think about not being that person anymore, what typically happens on a subconscious level is a resistance because you think that something bad will happen.
Exactly.
And that's the piece where I now recognize, because I'm a big journaler, I'm a big goal setter. And in the past, I would journal on my goals. I would write my goals down. I would tell people my goals. And it was only this year that I realized, oh, sometimes when I write my goals, there's an uncomfortable feeling that I have. And I don't fully believe that I can actually achieve it. And so what I've started doing is whenever I write down my goal and I notice that I'm not like 100% on board with it, I'll put my hand on my heart and I'll just ask, what are you afraid of? And
I love that.
That's amazing. Will get such clear answers because it's things that like, at one point I was afraid of making more money because I thought that my boyfriend would leave me and my friends wouldn't like me. And none of this made conscious sense. There was no evidence for it. But until you actually address what your brain has created as like the worst case scenario, you will continue to repeat the same patterns.
Yeah, 100%. And that's exactly, you have illustrated this so well. Whatever we saw growing up, or like maybe, and also let's just be honest, right? There's so much conditioning around like food and like body image in society, especially as women, we're bombarded with it, literally. So there's so many opportunities, not only while growing up, but even like in later years to start getting these ideas that if I am not like this, or if I don't look like this, then XYZ. And those are the faulty connections that we start making. So then obviously it feels for the body. So I want to be like this, then I have to do this. So if I don't do this, then it literally feels like you cannot stop doing the bad behavior because it feels like death. Literally, right?
Literally feels like you're dying.
Exactly. Something's going to happen. But the reason that there's such grip is because literally that the subconscious mind is at play. And there's some faulty connections where it makes making that shift like something bad is going to happen. So I love that you just put your hand on your chest and just say, okay, it's like, just imagine that everything I don't accomplish this or whatever it is, or I accomplish this, right? I shift this way and blah, blah, blah. And what am I afraid of? Like, I think that's like, and underneath pretty much everything, there's fear. That's the reality. So I think that's a great question for people to ask at themselves, right? If they are not being able to shift something also. So what am I afraid will happen if I do things differently? There has to be some fear there. Oh, so that happens and this. And then you start like this uncovering, like, oh, okay, so there's a part of me that even though I feel like I know that this is going to be better for me, there's another part of me that feels afraid of A, B, and C, right? Like whatever that is. And then you can address that.
Yeah. And when I'm working with clients, when we do this work, I always make sure that I preface, I'm like, don't give me the logical answer. Because sometimes we try to like logically figure out what we're afraid of. And it's oftentimes what your subconscious mind comes up with is not going to be logical. Like you said, it's like these faulty connections. For me, one of the biggest things I look back on, and for years when I struggled with orthorexia and eating disorders, I had made this faulty connection that people loved me because of how disciplined and how healthy I was. I don't know anyone who's ever said, I love my friend so much because she's at the gym every morning. Like I've never heard anyone say that. But for some reason, I think because I grew up in an environment where my dad is very disciplined, very like on top of his stuff. And I was the youngest of 5 kids. And so the way that I saw it is to be loved and to be accepted and to be seen, you are disciplined and you achieve and you are successful. And so for me, I obviously knew I didn't want to continue living with an eating disorder. And I really noticed that it was so part of my identity to be this this like quote unquote disciplined, healthy friend that like even eating pizza in front of other people felt like I was dying, because then I was like, what are they going to be thinking about? It's just it doesn't make sense logically, but I really had to look at what are you so afraid of? And for me, it was I'm going to lose everyone.
Yeah, it's so crazy, right? And I so feel identify with that because I was telling you, like I was a health coach for many years and I literally would feel ashamed of eating. Like I felt like I got so into it that I literally, as I was like a health coach, shouldn't be doing this type, blah, blah, blah. So I would shoot myself and I would literally feel like embarrassed of eating, I don't know, pizza, pasta, and like other foods in front of other people. And it's just, it's so interesting how the mind connects things. I think the other thing that I wanted to bring up also, something that is so people also understand what is underneath all of this, because you were talking about, like your friends are not going to like you or people are not going to like you, right? I think the more I work with people, and there's a bunch of different mindset things that I work through with people, right? But underneath pretty much all of them is like there's this fear of not being loved or liked, or fear of not being good enough, like unworthiness type thing. And those literally are the two things at the root of pretty much every behavior that we don't want to have. It's like crazy. As much as the variety in the upper part, let's just say like in the more superficial part, it's like this behavior, that behavior, whatever it is, this thought, that thought. Underneath, for most people, is they are literally just afraid of not being loved, not being liked, and not being good enough in society, for their friends, for like their loved ones, for a male partner, or the opposite, I don't know, like sex or whatever it is, or whoever you want to be liked by, right? So it's pretty crazy.
And like you talked about the conditioning that especially women are victim to our entire life. And it's been like this for a century, that in order to be accepted and to be loved in society, you need to look a certain way. And I've spoken to so many women who even just the act of dieting and even just the act of being able to tell people like, okay, maybe I'm in a bigger body, but I'm trying to lose weight. Like I'm trying to do something about this, that can give you this sense of like being accepted by society. Because if you are, oh my God forbid, you're in a bigger body and you're accepting of your bigger body and you're happy in your bigger body, that goes against all of the conditioning that we've gotten. So that literally for you to be confident and happy in your body and your here and now body, like you said, will feel like you're dying.
Literally. And so you understand what then goes on the subconscious level. It's like the subconscious mind is going to be screaming at you the most self-hatred things so that it gets you to continue the diet and continue like the behaviors that you think are going to get you to the goal, right? Like being liked or whatever it is. So, which is why I think you were saying it's like a lot of your clients have this like self-hatred, and that voice is coming from subconscious mind trying to get you back into doing this so that you don't suffer, so that you can be loved, so that you can be liked, so that you can fit in, like whatever it is. Yeah. So that's why also that inner critic comes out so hard.
I love that you brought up the word suffer. As you can remember, in August at a retreat, we did this whole exercise on your inner critic. And it's so easy because your inner critic tends to be so mean. It's so easy to get angry at ourselves for being so mean to ourselves. It's like negativity on top of negativity. And I know that things really shifted for me when I started realizing that that voice, your inner critic, your ego, it's not trying to make you suffer. It's actually trying to save you from suffering. It's like this really overprotective mother that doesn't want anything to happen to her kid. So she doesn't even let her kid go outside because there's so many dangers out there. But like at the core of that overprotective mother is just pure love. It's just misguided love.
Oh my God. Yes. 100,000% yes to this. That is so important to understand. I think, like I literally right before this, I was at the gym and listening to this book that talks about subconscious mind and subconscious parts, right? And it was talking about this positive intent. And it's exactly what you're saying. Even the negative voices, the fear, like all these different things that you feel are almost like playing against you. When we say, oh, we are our worst own enemy, it's like the inner critic, like the fear, the self-hatred, whatever it is that is playing out that feels negative and is causing pain has a positive intent. It's actually trying to avoid more pain or avoid something bad happening. So it's just even though these are parts of us that are critical or sad or creating self-hatred, even though they are creating pain, I always love bringing compassion in and just realizing that this is just a part of your psyche trying to keep you alive, not working. It's not the right strategy, but it's actually what it's trying to do. I remember when I was a health coach, I remember reading this book that there's no diseases. And the reason that the book was saying that is because the body creating a quote unquote disease actually came from the body trying to bend over backwards to keep you healthy. But because it just can't, like sometimes there's such imbalance, it's just doing all these different things to just try to come back to balance. And it's always trying to do these things. So sometimes we just have also self-hatred in terms of, oh, why my body's doing blah, blah, blah. But even the body is always trying to get us back to health, getting back to balance, right? Same as the mind, sometimes the strategy is a detrimental one, right? So if we can start seeing also the mind in that way, so it always is trying to have a positive intent in the best way possible. Let's just say that the strategy is not really good.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But it gives you a little more compassion as to also understanding where that's coming from and knowing that, oh, okay, so this is just my mind trying to do the best it can with the tools it has and the beliefs it has. And I can just have compassion for that as well.
Yeah. And I love that you brought up parts, because for the longest time, I felt so confused because there were parts of me that felt super confident in some areas of my life where I was like, I can literally do whatever I set my mind to. I've got this. But then there'd be other areas of my life where I would be so unconfident. And I always just thought of myself as either you're this one thing or you're this one thing. It doesn't make sense. In one area of your life, you feel this way. And then in another area, you feel completely differently. And starting to learn about how your body and your mind works in all of these different parts, it helps you have this understanding that like, oh yeah, you're going to operate differently based off of different situations. And that's normal.
Yeah, that's absolutely normal. And especially with confidence, I feel like it's very circumstantial. And also, so you understand what's happening, right? Like when we grow up, literally mind, like our visually taking in every single little gesture, piece of information in the environment. Right? So sometimes that's why in certain environments with certain people, we may feel suddenly intimidated and small or whatever it is. And it's because the mind is taking information that looks very similar to XYZ person growing up that you're scared as a kid or whatever. And suddenly you feel like not confident or like the situation seems different or the situation seems like blah, blah, blah. And the mind is an association machine. That's how it works. So it's so interesting that you bring that up because it's exactly what happens. Like in certain areas of our life, we can feel so confident, like everything's working so well. And in areas, not necessarily. And it's just, there's parts of us that totally know what we want to be doing, how we want to be doing it, how we want to show up. And then there's our part that is afraid of doing that. So I like, and some people get confused with parts because there's like, what? We have so many parts inside. You can also call them facets of the mind. Like they're just pieces of the mind that have learned certain things, that have experienced certain things. And they're almost like fragments of the mind that have taken in different pieces of information. And then obviously that makes us the whole of us. And it's just fun in this process of like when you start healing all these parts and actually giving voice to these parts, which is exactly what you do when you put your hands in your heart and start asking, say, what are you afraid of? You're communicating with one of those facets of your mind that is actually having fear for whatever reason. And then when you give voice, instead of avoiding, which is what we do a lot as humans, we like avoiding any type of bad emotions or suffering. Instead of avoiding, when we give voice to these parts that may be feeling or thinking or doing things that we don't like and actually giving voice to them, what happens is that we can actually reintegrate them and just whatever the fear or concern is that is making us think, feel, or behave in a certain way. So it's really fun to just reintegrate them where they can be more helpful to us as well.
Okay, perfect. You touched on having compassion for those pieces of yourself that you may not like, that are self-sabotaging, that are getting in your own way. And that's definitely like something that I lacked for the longest time. Like I came from a place of pressure and a place of shoulds. You should be doing this, right? Like for me to even just sit down and enjoy a night off watching TV, there was this like voice in my head that I should be working. I should be spending my time more wisely. And I want to talk about what happens when you come to a goal from this place of pressure, because I know that this is 99% of my listeners, where you come from this place of, I should be doing this, I should be going faster, this needs to happen. So why is coming to a place of transformation and change and shifting from a place of pressure, why doesn't that work? Why is it like counterintuitive?
Love this question. Talk about one of my favorite topics because I suffer so much from it.
Same.
So basically what happens when we go after any type of goal with stress, pressure, what is underneath that is fear, right? It's like fear of not getting it or fear of whatever, some sort of fear. And what that does actually is that it activates our stress response, our fight or flight response. So then what happens in turn is that we start losing access to these inner resources that are like problem solving abilities and creativity and joy and like presence, also like anchoring our presence in the present moment, even like willpower, discipline, even that, like, everything goes out of the window for the most part. And why? It's basically simple. It's imagine there's a bunny in nature and the bunny is eating, I don't know, grass, carrots, whatever. And suddenly there's a coyote that is like around it. And it starts, the senses of the bunny take in the information that there's a coyote there. So that means that its life, it's like a threat. So then what happens with the body? It goes into fight, flight, or freeze, right? Like it's a stress response, same one that we have as humans. And immediately when that happens, that's activated, all the rest of the bodily functions of that bunny go out of the window. So like the bunny is not going to be thinking about eating anymore. It's not going to be thinking about mating or mingling with friends or like all that stuff has to go out of the window necessarily so that the whole body can be optimized to run or fight or freeze. So in the exact same way, it happens with us humans. So like the problem with going at our goals from a place of pressure and stress and fear, besides the fact that those things are just actually detrimental to our bodies, right? There's like studies on how stress literally wrecks the freaking body, wrecks the gut, like our gut health, increases cravings. There's just like a million studies on how detrimental it is. But on top of that, at a mind level, it literally reduces all our like higher faculties of our brain, because exactly like it would be happening to this little bunny, like the brain starts preparing us to run or to fight. And obviously you and I know that running or fighting is not going to make us better at accomplishing any of our goals. We don't need to run or fight to accomplish our goals, right?
Yeah.
So we don't need our brain to be optimizing the body for that. It's just like totally not useful in that moment, right? Obviously, if there's an actual predator, 100%, right? But that's exactly what happens. And then when we do that, also the other thing that I love bringing to people's attention is that when we go at any goal from this place, it's almost like we are inflicting suffering onto us. That's a reality. Like we're getting ourselves into a state that if we start doing it over and over from that state, can create burnout, can create just like adrenal fatigue, can create all these different things. So then what is the mind going to do? It's going to try to protect you from the exact thing that you want to accomplish. And to that is going to create a bunch of negative associations to actually doing the thing and going after that goal. I cannot even tell you how many people I have coached to clear the past associations from burning out, from having so much stress that literally their bodies were breaking down, because at some point in their new business or in how they're trying to approach everything like with more joy and calm and being grounded and whatever it is, right? But the memory is still there, right? So then the body starts literally, I don't want to do anything related to this business or this goal or anything, because the last time that we did that, you freaking burned us to the ground and we don't want that.
Yes.
So it's literally going to double down on resisting you getting to that goal. So it just doesn't make any sense, really.
Yeah.
But the thing is that society has literally instilled in us that's the best way to actually go after our goals. It's like, no, that's not the best way. It's like also the other thing that happens when there is a stress. So for example, for an athlete, you obviously want that athlete to perform, right? And a lot of athletes will want to perform from this place of stress, pressure, and whatever it is. But that actually is even cutting blood from the body, like oxygen and all these different things, like literally getting lowered in, that actually makes you feel even worse, right? You want that athlete to feel present, to feel focused, to be calm, grounded, to be in the zone, if you want to call it, or like in the flow. And that's exactly how we want to also achieve our goals, because that's when we're going to have access to most of our higher faculties and inner resources to accomplish anything that we want.
Yeah.
When we go for stress and pressure, we don't have access access to all of that. We literally are like cutting the flow of that, and it makes it way harder for us, actually.
Yeah. The way that I always imagine it and I explain it to my clients is imagine that you're trying to get your work done and there's someone who's behind you that's just throwing insults at you that you suck. You're so bad at this. Like you're never going to be able to reach your goal. Do you think that your body is going to feel like, oh, I'm so relaxed. I'm so focused. Or are you going to feel so terrible? But that's what we do to ourselves when we are coming from this place of pressure. I'm not going to lie. I'm definitely not perfect. There are some days where I notice that there's a little bit more pressure. And those are the days where I get the worst work done and the least creative. And like you said, like in touch with those higher faculties, because it's such a horrible feeling to be working from that place.
Seriously. Amen to everything you said. And I love that you said that because like in my example, like a boss or something is just breathing down your neck and just like telling you horrible things. Like you're not even going to have any creativity. Forget it.
There's one thing that was really interesting that I noticed this year. When I used to launch in my business, I would burn myself out. And I had absolutely made the association of when I'm launching, I don't sleep well. I'm working 24/7. I don't see my friends. I had done, I think, 4 or 5 launches in that pattern. And I think it was April or May this year, I decided, okay, we're not doing this anymore. I had the worst burnout of my life in February. I don't know if you remember me crying on our call together. And that was really my wake-up call of I can't keep doing things this way. And so when I approached my launch, I think in April or May, I was super intentional. I really noticed from this outside observer how much my body was just conditioned to falling back into that pattern. Even though I consciously didn't want to do that, my body would pull me into it. And every time I noticed that, it was like breaking that pattern was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. I had to be so conscious of, okay, I noticed that you want to work past 5 p.m., but we don't do that anymore. So you're going to force yourself to go out and leave the house. Like it was super intentional. It's not just something that you're like, you snap your fingers and you break a pattern.
Yeah. Oh my God. And that's, I commend you for that because exactly what you're saying. And the thing is that just like you experience, like the same, I don't know, biological responses will continue to happen, right? Like the stress and it's like the urge to continue working.
Yeah.
Like it will be there. And it takes a lot of awareness and intentionality. And that's a great place where your willpower and discipline to override that in each little moment, it's so useful to almost obligate yourself. Like, okay, we're not doing that. Sorry. This part is over. Move on type thing. And that's you also using your conscious mind and the faculty, the willpower and discipline to actually override what your body was doing. One more like evidence, let's just say that, oh, okay, I did it this new way and it actually worked well. So let's just continue doing it that way.
And I had to go into the launch having the intentions beforehand. Because if I go into it the same way that I've always done it, when you're in it, like your body's having the stress response, you're addicted to the cortisol, like you're just in it and then your willpower goes out the window. So I really had to set my intentions when I was from this place of calm and I was present. And so that when I noticed those like few little warning signs at the beginning, I got to catch it. Because if I let it go all the way until my rock bottom, it really does become this downward spiral. Like it's so easy to fall back into some of those patterns.
100%. And exactly what you're saying, it's like the body gets addicted to the cortisol and any hormone that is being secreted. And then in the same situation, we'll just send all the same responses, reactions and whatever. It's just automated, right? So that's awesome that you were able to deliver that. And probably you also do that with your clients of making the intention and thinking through how you're going to actually do this from the place before anything starts, from that place of like calm, grounded presence where before anything goes on. Because I remember, so when I was like shifting behaviors in terms of like, eating and stuff, I did that a lot. Like not when the food was in front of me, not when I was already in that situation, but ahead of time, I chose how I wanted to experience that, right? So I can just lean into my intention and not the automation, basically.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I had a client yesterday who is going on a trip this week. And this is the first trip that she's going on after having joined the Food Freedom Academy. She was asking me, I want to be able to handle this trip in a way that I'm not obsessive around food. I can be be present and enjoy the food without going overboard. And so what should I do? And I asked her, okay, let's say that we take ourselves out to next week and you come to our coaching call next week and you're telling all of us how much of a success it was and how different it was of a trip than anything you've ever experienced before. What made it a success? And then she got super clear on, oh, I really slowed down during my meals. And she told me all these things. And I said, all right, before you leave, you're going to write down your intentions for this trip so that you plant that seed. Because when you're in the moment and you're around people and you're conditioned to your old patterns, that mind is going to go offline. So how about you plant the seed before you even leave?
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. And that actually starts, it's almost like visualization, like when you're creating that intention ahead of time and you're getting super clear as to like how you want to experience that, like the trip or whatever it is, which is so funny because I have had exactly that experience. I remember I want to experience this trip differently, like instead of just being so mindless. And when you do that exercise ahead of time, you're activating the new neural connections so that it's so much easier in the moment to actually behave in a different way. Yeah, I love that.
Okay,
Very
so
useful.
we could nerd out about this for hours. It's so funny because I wrote down a few questions that I thought I might ask you during this interview. And I was like, we'll see where it goes. And I did not even look at my questions. But now I'm sure that my listeners are being like flooded with knowledge and it's floating all around in their minds. And so let's ground it in a way that they can start applying some of the concepts and the information that they learned in these interviews. Let's say that you're listening to this podcast and you're recognizing like, ooh, I either don't know what my subconscious mind is doing, or I'm super aware that my subconscious mind is getting in my way. But how do I even start addressing it, being aware of it, shifting it? I know that this is not something that happens overnight. And so what are some starting steps that my listeners can get started on right away?
Okay, awesome. Yes, I think the big key that I would say is awareness. You probably already do that, but it's basically bringing awareness to the patterns, because that's when you're in automation, that's the pattern, right, of behavior. Basically, the patterns come in like with different things, which is like pattern of feeling, behaving, and thinking. So like in each of these, I call them like moments of decision, like moments where things can go right or left. Like in those moments where there is that moment of decision, and there's going to be a lot of moments of decision, it's like bringing awareness first to what is happening in your body. Is there an urge? Is there like an emotion? Is there a thought that is being repeated over and over? And what is a behavior that normally you would go in the automation to, right? And as you create awareness of that, I love the idea of using also asking yourself, like, what is the worst case scenario, right? What is the worst that can happen? And don't ask to your mind. Just close your eyes and tune into your body. See what your body says, because that's how the subconscious mind communicates with us, is in like the body. So get out of your head, get into your body, close your eyes, and understand. You can exactly do what you were saying. So asking questions, what are you trying to do? What would happen if I stopped doing things this way? What are you afraid that may happen? I think those little questions will start revealing what is behind, what is that positive intent. When I do sessions with people, that's exactly what I ask. Okay? When I'm working with any part that is creating a certain behavior or pattern that is not beneficial, literally one of the questions is, okay, so what are you concerned may happen if you stop feeling this way, if you stop thinking this way? And then just get ready, because you're not asking your brain, you're asking your body, and you will get an answer. And then you will figure out, right? Like those connections of, oh, okay, it makes total sense. And my body wants to like continue to automate this because it's afraid of X, Y, Z, right?
I think a really good example for this is a lot of emotional eating in my listeners and the people I work with. This is one of those biggest things that feels so frustrating, because we can know logically that if I'm feeling stressed or overwhelmed or emotional or whatever it might be, okay, sure, when I eat and I turn to food, it makes me feel better for a short amount of time, but then I feel so much worse after. And so one of the exercises I do with my clients is, okay, let's take a look, because there can be this resistance to, I'm so scared to stop emotional eating. Like, I know that it's not good for me, but I'm so scared to stop. And when you get curious about why, a lot of people will start to realize, then I have to address actual things going on in my life beliefs that I'm pushing down and then I'm distracting myself from. And if that fear of right now, it's serving a purpose because it's helping me not look at the problems, the issues in my life. So I eat instead. Then the thought of quote unquote giving up that habit is going to feel so much more threatening because now you're faced with, okay, I have to look at what's really going on in my life.
100%. Yep. And that happens a lot also like with anyone just like using alcohol, like any type of thing that is basically taking you away from looking at things. And I will say that when we have to actually finally look at things, the big fear is not necessarily the thing itself, but the emotions or change or the emotions that changing things or facing things will awaken. Yeah, there's a lot to say. Like we have not even gotten into emotional regulation, but that's also a big part of it. Learning how to be able to handle all our range of emotions and knowing what to do with our emotions. Yeah, when we stop doing one thing, emotions will come up, and it's good to have that ability to really be with any emotion. Yeah. It's like a massive superpower.
Yeah.
And it's uncomfortable AF, but it's so possible. And you can actually be with your emotions without them taking over forever, which is a lot of the fear that happens with people. It's like, if I let this emotion just do it, I'm never going to get out of this emotion, right? So then there's this avoidance. So yeah.
There's a reason why it's one of my 4 pillars in my framework. If you don't know how to handle your emotions, then you will continue to avoid them. And then avoidance goes with those unhealthy coping mechanisms. So it's like you said, it's crucial. Like you can't ignore that piece. And you mentioned, I want to bring this into an exercise that they can do. So you mentioned like the first piece is awareness. And it's so funny because you said awareness of feelings, thinking, and behaving. And I do the exact same exercise with my clients where I just have them either create a notes app on their phone because it's easy to constantly update, because there's always thoughts that come up that you won't know the first time you do this exercise, or you do it in your journal and you just keep updating it. So leave some empty space for it, because you will keep coming up with new thoughts and new emotions and new behaviors. And just start writing down what are some of the thoughts, feelings, and actions that are in my life that I want to get rid of or that I want to shift, and just start bringing awareness to that, because most of the time it's hiding underneath the surface. And until you shine some light on it, it will continue to drive your behavior and feel like it has control over you instead of you feeling like you have control over it.
100%. So yeah, that awareness piece is like massively important as the first step. I think the second thing is asking, what am I afraid of? I know it's hard, but if people can do this, can you find acceptance in your worst case scenario? Okay, let's just imagine, like, just stop resisting this worst case scenario. The reason it has so much power over you is because there's so much resistance to it. It literally just falls away. If you stop resisting it, the worst case scenario, and just imagine for a second to just be in absolute 100% acceptance of it. Okay, perfect. This is my worst case scenario, and imagine it will happen. And just be like, at some point you will realize it's almost like ridiculous, because our worst case scenario usually is very rational for the most part, or it's just, okay, that won't happen. There's no way that will make that happen. When you get into acceptance, then you start realizing, actually, this doesn't make any sense. So that's, I would say, big one is that one. And then in terms of shifting behaviors, anyone can do this at their house. It's like in those moments that you have been writing down, right? Like, when this happens, I usually feel this way, think this way, and then I feel like I need to do this action, right? Stop in those moments. You don't need to do it in that moment, but ahead of time, now that you have your record of what are all those decision points, and go into imagination and imagine yourself behaving like you want to behave and feeling like you want to feel. That start exercising and awakening the neurons to actually get you in when you are based in the exact same position. And next time you will start shifting behavior. And obviously that will happen if you have first addressed those like secondary gains, right? If you are really like in avoidance of whatever is that the overeating is like hiding. If you have a lot of things in there, obviously the rehearsal won't do anything because there's too much to gain for you still in that behavior, right? But if you address that stuff and then you start imagining, then the moment that the situation comes in again, you will like those neural connections, that like way of thinking that you already rehearsed in your mind will be way easier to in real life. Like visualization is amazing for creating new behaviors, like for real. It's like insane.
Yeah. Oh my God. Hi, Anna. Thank you so much for being being here. I literally could talk to you for. I'm so excited for my listeners to get to hear this. And that was just so much value. So I appreciate you so much. I know people are going to be running, not walking, to go and follow you and connect with you. So where can they find you?
Yeah. So on Instagram is my favorite place to hang out. And in there, my tag is I am Diana Sofia, but Sofia is written with an F of Frank. I'm from Peru, like Latin names. So it's Sofia, Diana Sofia. And before that is I am. So at I am Diana Sofia. And yeah, you can just find me there and shoot me a message. Any questions that you have, anything at all. So I'm happy to answer anything on the DMs. So yeah, just let me know how I can support you.
I will put your website and your Instagram in the show notes and go follow her, send her a little DM, say that you heard her on this podcast, let her know your favorite parts of the podcast and her episode. And once again, thank you so much, Diana, for being here. I so appreciate you. And thank you to all of you listeners for being here as well. And we will see you on the next episode. Okay, so that was only part 1. Can you believe it? And I hope that you're already like having all of these breakthroughs and aha moments, and you're seeing like in what ways is your subconscious mind acting in a way that maybe you didn't know. And I love talking about this kind of stuff because this is the stuff that matters, right? Like you can know what to do, but as long as you don't address what's going on underneath the surface, then you're going to continue hitting a wall and feeling frustrated and feeling hopeless. And I hope that there's one thing that you can take away from this, and it's that you're not hopeless. And even if there are things that your subconscious mind is doing right now that you don't completely love, there is absolutely the possibility to rewire it, right? That's the beauty of neuroplasticity, is that you are capable of changing the way that you think and feel and behave, no matter how long you've been struggling. And it's having the right tools, the right strategies, the right perspective in order to shift. And what you're going to notice is that it's going to start impacting every single area of your life. Like what I see in my clients is absolutely mind-blowing, because not only are they feeling more calm and relaxed and at peace with food, but they're feeling more calm and relaxed and at peace in their relationships, as a mother, at their job. And like it's obvious that when you are coming from this place of calm and peace, the outcomes and the results that you get out of your life are just obviously going to be so much better. So I'm so excited to have part 2 for you next week, where we are going to talk about what happens when you approach your goals from a place of pressure and quote unquote shoulds. And then you know that I like to ground all of this information into strategies and exercises that you can do, because I know that that was probably a lot of information for you. And then you might be thinking like, what do I do with this? So I want to answer that question, and we are going to get into that in part 2 of this episode. So thank you so much for being here. Make sure that you tune in next Wednesday for part 2 with Diana, and you'll find all of her links in the show notes if you want to connect with her already as well. Thank you so much, and I will see you next week. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you found it valuable, I would love if you would share it with someone you know that could benefit. If you're loving the show, don't forget to subscribe over on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. I really love hearing feedback from you, so please leave a rating and review over on Apple to help us get in the ears of more people who need it the most. Finally, come hang out with me on Instagram at Sabrina Magna Health for more educational content and get up close and personal with me. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you on the next episode.